They say love between men defies the gods. But what if a pharaoh chose forbidden desire over duty?
Egypt falls silent, truth buried in sand and fear. Two lovers erased not by death, but by power.
The Nile flows eternal, indifferent to the secrets of men. In the year 4500 before the Common Era, when Egypt stood as the cradle of civilization, when pyramids pierced the sky like prayers carved in stone, there existed a truth so forbidden that scribes dared not inscribe it upon temple walls. This is not merely history, it is memory kept alive by whispers, by the trembling hands of those who loved in shadows. The palace of Memphis rose from the desert like a golden mirage, its limestone walls reflecting the merciless sun. Inside those walls, where priests chanted hymns to Ra and servants moved like ghosts through corridors scented with myrrh and lotus, lived Pharaoh Khufu III, a man of 28 years, born to rule, trained to embody divinity itself. His shoulders bore the weight of two kingdoms, Upper and Lower Egypt united beneath his crook and flail. His eyes, lined with kohl, gazed upon his subjects with the distance expected of a living god. But gods, it seems, are capable of human desire. Khufu's days were ritual. Dawn brought purification in pools of sacred water. Noon demanded audiences with viziers and priests who spoke in riddles and political maneuvering. Dusk called for ceremonies where he stood as intermediary between mortal realm and divine will. Yet between these duties, in the stolen moments when protocol loosened its grip, the pharaoh found himself drawn to the palace's northern gardens, a labyrinth of date, palms and jasmine where fountains whispered secrets to the wind. It was there he first saw Nefer. Nefer was not nobility. He came from the artisan quarter, son of a sculptor whose hands had shaped limestone into eternal beauty. At 25 years old, with the strong, defined physique of a man who had spent his youth carving stone, Nefer possessed his father's gift, muscular forearms corded with strength, fingers that could coax life from rock, eyes that saw beauty where others perceived only stone. He had been commissioned to restore ancient reliefs in the palace temple, work that required precision, patience, and an understanding of sacred geometry that few possessed. Their first encounter was accident masquerading as fate. Khufu, seeking respite from a particularly tedious council meeting, wandered the gardens and stumbled upon Nefer sketching architectural designs on papyrus. The young artisan, absorbed in his work, failed to notice the pharaoh's approach. When he finally looked up, terror should have seized him. Commoners did not meet royal eyes without permission, but something passed between them in that moment, something that transcended hierarchy and protocol. "What do you draw?" asked Khufu, his voice stripped of imperial command, almost vulnerable. Nefer's hands trembled as he held up the papyrus. "A doorway, divine one," the young artisan replied, his voice hesitant. "Not for entering, but for remembering." The pharaoh stepped closer, examining the intricate design, a portal framed by hieroglyphs that spoke of passage between worlds, of thresholds where one identity ended and another began. "And what would one remember through such a door?" inquired Khufu, leaning nearer. "Who they were before they became who they had to be," whispered Nefer, his eyes meeting the pharaoh's with unexpected courage. Those words pierced Khufu like an arrow finding flesh. In Nefer's simple wisdom, he recognized his own silent anguish, the suffocation of divine expectation, the prison of predetermined destiny. He should have walked away. Protocol demanded it, divinity required it. Instead, he sat beside the artisan, and for the first time in his reign, spoke not as pharaoh, but as man. They met again the next evening, and the evening after that. The northern garden became their sanctuary, a pocket of reality where titles dissolved like salt in the Nile. Nefer spoke of beauty, how light played upon water, how shadow revealed form, how imperfection often contained more truth than flawless execution. Khufu listened, hungry for perspectives beyond palace walls, for thoughts that existed outside political calculation. The young sculptor's words awakened something in the divine ruler that no amount of ceremony could satisfy. But desire, once awakened, refuses containment. The night had happened. The air hung heavy with approaching storm. The sky churned purple and black, and the first drops of rare Egyptian rain began to fall. They stood beneath a canopy of palm fronds, ostensibly discussing temple renovations, but their words had become meaningless, mere sound masking the electricity between them. The wind carried the scent of myrrh and storm, and both men felt the weight of what approached. Khufu reached out, his hand finding Nefer's shoulder. The touch burned. The artisan's breath caught, his eyes reflecting both terror and longing. The pharaoh leaned closer, close enough to feel the heat radiating from skin that smelled of limestone dust and sweat and something indefinably human. "Tell me to stop," said Khufu, his voice barely above a whisper, heavy with need. "I cannot." "Divine One," replied Nefer, his voice breaking. "I am already lost." Their kiss tasted of rain and rebellion. In that moment, hierarchies collapsed. The living god became simply a man desperate for connection. The humble artisan became beloved. They fell into each other like drowning men clutching at salvation, hands exploring forbidden territory, mouths speaking wordless confessions that centuries would never hear. The affair blossomed in secret, a night-blooming flower that opened only in darkness. Khufu arranged for Nefer to receive permanent commission within the palace, officially to oversee artistic projects, unofficially to remain close. They developed elaborate systems of communication, specific arrangements of lotus flowers signaling safe meeting times, servants loyal enough to look away, architectural plans that served as coded love letters expressing depths of emotion that could never be spoken aloud. Their love existed in fragments, stolen hours between state functions, hurried embraces in forgotten storage rooms, fingers intertwined beneath banquet tables while priests droned blessings to Osiris. They learned each other's bodies like cartographers mapping new territories, discovering landscapes of pleasure that temple doctrine declared abomination. In those stolen moments, they were neither pharaoh nor commoner, neither divine nor mortal. They were simply two men recognizing each other's souls. But Egypt's walls have eyes. Palace servants whispered in shadowed corners. Priests noticed the pharaoh's distraction during ceremonies, the way his gaze drifted toward the artisan's quarter. The high priest Imhotep, a man whose devotion to tradition exceeded his capacity for compassion, began watching with reptilian patience, his aged eyes missing nothing. Nefer felt it first, the weight of hostile observation, the prickling sensation of being studied like prey. He mentioned his fears to Khufu during one of their clandestine meetings, his voice trembling with premonition of coming disaster. "They watch us," said Nefer, his muscular frame shaking despite his physical strength. "I feel their eyes upon me everywhere now." But Khufu, drunk on love and the arrogance of divine status, dismissed them with confidence born of privilege. "I am Pharaoh," declared the young ruler with certainty. "My word is law. My will shapes reality. But what of divine law?" countered Nefer, his voice rising with worry. "What of Ma'at? What of cosmic balance?" Khufu silenced him with kisses. But the question lingered like incense smoke, persistent, permeating, impossible to ignore. The priests of Egypt served as guardians not merely of temples, but of cosmic order itself. Ma'at, the principle of truth, justice, and universal harmony, governed everything from royal succession to the flooding of the Nile. Any disruption to this balance invited chaos, drought, plague, divine retribution. And love between men? The doctrine was unambiguous. Such desire violated natural order, offended the gods, threatened the very foundations of Egyptian civilization. Imhotep gathered evidence like a spider spinning web. He documented the pharaoh's absences during prayer times. He recorded Nefer's inexplicable elevation in status. He collected testimony from servants who had glimpsed too much, seen too clearly. And when his case became irrefutable, ironclad with the weight of priestly law, he convened the secret council of high priests, men whose loyalty to divine law superseded even loyalty to the living God himself. The confrontation came during the festival of Opet, when all Egypt celebrated the journey of Amun-Ra's sacred bark along the Nile. While the populace danced and drank beer beneath torchlit skies, Imhotep entered the pharaoh's private chambers with 6 senior priests, flanking him like judges at the weighing of hearts. "Divine One," began Imhotep, his voice cold as tombstone, "we come before you with heavy hearts and heavier duty." Khufu, still flushed from his earlier meeting with Nefer, felt ice crystallize in his stomach. "Speak, priest," commanded the pharaoh. "What troubles you during our most sacred celebration?" "Your defilement troubles us," said Imhotep with measured precision. "Your violation of Ma'at, your corruption of divine essence through unnatural desire." The words hung in the air like curse. Khufu's hands clenched into fists. "You dare accuse your pharaoh?" "We accuse no one," replied Imhotep coldly. "We present truth." The high priest gestured, and another priest unfurled papyrus covered with documented observations, dates, times, locations, witnesses. "Your relationship with the artisan Nefer violates every sacred law. It offends Ra, Osiris, Horus. It threatens Egypt's cosmic balance." Khufu wanted to rage, to strike them down with royal fury, but he was also priest-trained, raised on the same doctrines they now wielded against him. He knew the theological arguments. He understood the cosmological implications. And beneath his imperial conditioning, guilt festered like infected wound. "What would you have me do?" asked Khufu finally, his voice barely audible, as if already accepting defeat. "Renounce this abomination," commanded Imhotep. "Send the artisan away, to distant quarries where his perversion cannot contaminate sacred spaces. Return to your duties, take wives as tradition demands, produce heirs. Let this darkness be forgotten as if it never existed." "And if I refuse?" asked Khufu, though he already sensed the answer. Imhotep's expression remained impassive, his aged eyes reflecting no mercy. "Then we cannot guarantee Egypt's favor with the gods. We cannot promise the Nile will flood. We cannot ensure your dynasty's continuation. Choose, Divine One, love or legacy, man or pharaoh, desire or duty. The choice, as always, belongs to you, but so do the consequences."
Love is not sin, only the world's cruelty in condemning it. Can gods create what they despise, or do they fear what they cannot control?
Perhaps gods test us with impossible choices, knowing we will fail.
Khufu dismissed the priests without answer that night, but their ultimatum echoed through his skull like the drums of tomb makers. That night, he could not face Nefer. He wandered the palace alone, tracing fingers along hieroglyphs that proclaimed eternal truths, truths that now felt like shackles binding his wrists and ankles. His divine authority, once absolute, now seemed fragile as papyrus. Sleep came fitfully, haunted by dreams where he stood before Anubis at the weighing of hearts. In these nightmares, his heart outweighed the feather of Ma'at by impossible margins, heavy with forbidden love. The devourer Ammit waited, crocodile jaws open, ready to consume his soul to oblivion, erasing him from eternity itself. He woke before dawn, drenched in sweat despite the cool desert night. A servant stood by his bed, one of Nefer's trusted messengers, holding a small clay tablet. On it, the artisan had scratched a simple, desperate message in code. "Garden, dawn, please." Khufu found Nefer waiting beneath their usual palm, silhouetted against the rising sun. The young man's face showed sleepless suffering. He had heard rumors, sensed the shifting political winds like desert animals sensing approaching sandstorm. "They know," said Nefer without preamble, his voice hollow. "The priests know everything." "Yes," replied Khufu, offering no false comfort or easy denial. "What will you do?" asked Nefer, his muscular frame trembling despite its strength. Khufu wanted to promise protection, to declare love stronger than law, to rage against the injustice of cosmic order. But he was Pharaoh, trained since childhood to sacrifice personal desire for Egypt's greater good. His silence communicated what words could not. Nefer's face crumpled as understanding descended upon him like vulture circling. "You're sending me away." "I have no choice," said Khufu, his voice breaking. "If I defy the priests, they will orchestrate my overthrow. Egypt will descend into chaos. Thousands will suffer because I chose personal happiness over cosmic order." "Cosmic order?" asked Nefer, his voice rising in anger, pain cutting through sadness. "Or priestly tyranny? Who determines what offends the gods? Deities themselves or men who claim to speak for them?" "Does it matter?" replied Khufu, the question filled with existential despair. "The priests wield enough power to make their interpretation reality. They control temples, grain supplies, popular perception. If they declare me heretic, I become heretic, regardless of truth. So love loses," said Nefer quietly. "Again, always." Khufu reached for Nefer, pulling him close despite the brightening day, despite the risk of observation. Their bodies pressed together, muscles and heartbeats synchronizing one final time. "Love doesn't lose," whispered Khufu desperately. "It simply cannot win in this world, in this time. Perhaps in the afterlife." "Don't," said Nefer, pushing away with gentle firmness, his voice breaking. Don't promise me paradise when you're taking heaven from me now. Don't speak of eternal reunion when you lack courage for temporal commitment. The accusation stung because it contained truth. Khufu was choosing position over passion, dynasty over devotion. He tried to frame it as noble sacrifice, but noble sacrifices require the sacrificer to suffer most, and he was condemning Nefer to greater pain while reserving comfort for himself. "Where will I go?" asked Nefer, his voice small and frightened, the voice of a young man facing exile. "To the Sinai quarries," replied Khufu carefully, each word a knife wound to his own heart. "You will oversee turquoise mining operations. It is honorable work, far from Memphis, far from dangerous rumors, far from you," said Nefer, stating the unbearable truth. "Yes," confirmed Khufu, his single word carrying the weight of their entire tragedy. They stood in shared agony, memorizing each other's faces against the impending absence, touching as if they could memorize skin through fingertips alone. The sun rose higher, indifferent to human suffering. Birds sang in the palm fronds above them, mocking their sorrow with simple joy. Finally, Nefer spoke, his voice trembling with emotion. "Promise me something. Promise that when you look at the monuments I helped restore, when you walk through gardens where we loved, you will remember that I existed. That we existed. That for brief burning moments you were not Pharaoh and I was not artisan. We were simply two souls recognizing each other across the void." "I promise," said Khufu solemnly, his hand over his heart. "On my Ka, on my eternal essence, I promise you will haunt me forever. You will be written in the secret chambers of my heart, where no priest can reach." They kissed one final time, desperate and devastating, tasting salt tears and bitter endings. It was the kiss of men who understood they would never kiss again, who poured into that single moment all the passion, all the love, all the longing that could never be spoken in daylight. Then Nefer walked away, his muscular frame moving through the garden with the deliberate steps of condemned man walking toward his own exile. His figure grew smaller against the desert's immensity until he disappeared entirely, erased like ink washed from papyrus, like flame extinguished beneath stone. Khufu fulfilled his duty. He took 3 wives within the year, noble women chosen for political alliance rather than affection. He performed all required ceremonies with mechanical precision, his body moving through ritual while his spirit remained in the northern garden. He commissioned great building projects that would ensure his name lived forever in stone, pyramids and temples that would stand millennia after his love had turned to dust. He ruled justly, maintained Ma'at, kept Egypt prosperous. The Nile flooded regularly, crops grew abundant. Foreign nations respected Egyptian power. On the surface, all appeared well. But part of him died the day Nefer departed, not dramatically, but slowly, like stone worn smooth by endless sand. The priests noticed his transformation. How could they not? The pharaoh's eyes, once bright with divine authority and youthful passion, now carried shadows of profound weariness. He performed rituals perfectly but without spiritual presence, like actor reciting lines from memory rather than conviction. His voice during prayers lacked the vibrancy of true belief. Imhotep approached him one evening after a particularly lifeless ceremony, moving silently through the temple as priests often did. "Divine One," said the high priest, his voice surprisingly gentle, "you fulfill your duties admirably." "Is that satisfaction I hear in your voice, priest?" asked Khufu, turning to face the old man with barely concealed bitterness. "Not satisfaction," replied Imhotep, and perhaps there was sadness in his ancient eyes. "Sadness. I take no pleasure in enforcing painful truths, but Ma'at demands sacrifice. Cosmic balance requires that personal desire bow to universal order. And what of personal suffering?" asked Khufu, his voice raw. "Does that factor into your precious Ma'at? Does the agony of divided souls balance against cosmic harmony?" "We all suffer, Divine One," said Imhotep quietly. "The question is whether our suffering serves greater purpose or merely indulges selfish want." "You chose purpose. History will honor your sacrifice." "History doesn't feel," said Khufu bitterly. "History doesn't wake at night reaching for absent warmth. History doesn't know the taste of love it cannot claim." The priest had no response to offer. He bowed and withdrew, leaving Khufu alone with ghosts that would haunt him for the remainder of his reign. Years passed like grains of sand slipping through fingers. Khufu's reign brought unprecedented prosperity. The Nile flooded regularly with mystical precision. Crops grew abundant beyond measure. Foreign nations respected and feared Egyptian power. The young pharaoh became known as a wise and just ruler, though those close to him noted his perpetual melancholy, the way his gaze drifted toward northern horizons as if searching for something irretrievably lost. News of Nefer came sporadically through careful channels. Promotions in the quarry system, recognition for innovative mining techniques, reports of competent leadership. The artisan survived, even thrived in exile, building a life of quiet accomplishment in the harsh Sinai landscape. But the letters they exchanged through trusted intermediaries, written in careful code that only they could decipher, revealed the emotional cost of their separation. Nefer wrote of desert nights where stars seemed close enough to touch but never warm enough to comfort. He described loneliness that carved hollow spaces in his chest, spaces once filled by love now echoing with memory's ghost. He wrote of completion and incompletion, of finishing sculptures that would stand for eternity while his own heart remained unfinished, broken in ways no artist's hands could repair. Khufu's responses were careful, coded, officially discussing administrative matters, construction projects, and quarry production. But to Nefer's trained eye, they contained hidden declarations of enduring affection in the spacing of hieroglyphs, in deliberately chosen words that meant one thing to casual readers and everything to the intended recipient. One letter from Nefer contained a sketch, a doorway, like the one he had been drawing when they first met in the palace gardens. This version showed a threshold with two figures on opposite sides, reaching toward each other across an unbridgeable gap. Their muscles were rendered in careful detail, their bodies strong and youthful, frozen in eternal longing. The caption read, "A door that opens nowhere. A passage to a place that doesn't exist. The architecture of impossible things." Khufu kept that sketch hidden in a secret compartment in his sleeping chamber, behind walls that no servant dared explore. On nights when loneliness threatened to devour him entirely, he would retrieve it with hands that aged more quickly than they should, trace fingers over the drawn figures with tenderness, and allow himself the dangerous luxury of tears, tears that, as Pharaoh, he could never shed publicly, never acknowledge, never speak of to living soul. His wives bore him children, 6 in total, ensuring succession and dynasty continuation. He treated them kindly but distantly, providing comfort and respect without the intimacy that marriage traditionally demanded. They seemed to understand, or at least accept with the resignation of duty, the emotional absence at the heart of their marriage. Perhaps they even pitied him, this man who possessed everything yet remained profoundly alone, this living God whose heart had been buried in Sinai's remote quarries. The priests congratulated themselves on preserving Ma'at. Egypt prospered. The cosmic order held firm, and in their satisfaction, they failed to recognize the spiritual devastation their rigidity had wrought, not just in Khufu, but in countless others whose desires fell outside prescribed boundaries, whose love violated doctrine, whose very existence became heresy. For Khufu and Nefer were not unique. Throughout Egypt, in villages and cities, in palaces and workshops, others loved as they loved, desired as they desired. Most hid more successfully, their relationships buried so deep that not even priest-scrutinizing eyes detected them. They loved in fragments and shadows, stealing moments of authenticity from lives otherwise performed for societal approval. Some took female partners as required, maintaining the performance while engaging in forbidden passion in darkness. Some never allowed themselves to touch, channeling their desire into art, into work, into spiritual devotion. Some were discovered. Punishments varied: exile for the fortunate, death for the less lucky. The laws were ancient, carved in stone alongside regulations about grain storage and temple offerings, as if love between men were equivalent to theft or blasphemy, treated as crime against natural order rather than expression of human complexity. Yet despite prohibition and punishment, despite theological condemnation and social ostracism, such love persisted. It flowed beneath official history like underground river, invisible to those who refused to look, sustaining to those who knew where to drink. Scribes occasionally mentioned it obliquely in private correspondence, writing carefully to avoid direct acknowledgement. Medical papyri acknowledged its existence while prescribing treatments and cures that betrayed the author's ignorance. Foreign visitors recorded observations of Egyptian men in relationships that defied their own culture's understanding. But official history remained silent, deliberately, systematically silent. Temple walls proclaimed idealized heterosexual unions blessed by gods whose names filled the air with incense. Royal lineages traced descent through traditional marriages, through wives and children and legitimate heirs. Cultural narratives celebrated fertility, procreation, dynastic continuation. Any love that failed to serve these purposes was erased, not violently destroyed, but simply omitted, written out of existence through systematic silence that was perhaps more cruel than any execution. Khufu understood this erasure intimately. He knew that when his reign ended, scribes would record his accomplishments, monuments built, enemies defeated, prosperity maintained. They would list his wives and legitimate children in meticulous detail. They would praise his wisdom and justice, his devotion to Ma'at and cosmic order, but they would never mention Nefer. They would never acknowledge the love that simultaneously sustained and destroyed him, that gave his reign purpose while breaking his heart into pieces he could never quite reassemble. This awareness made him meticulous about documentation, careful as tomb builder preserving legacy. In hidden caches beneath palace foundations, he placed sealed jars containing papyrus scrolls, private journals describing his relationship with Nefer in unflinching detail, written in code but comprehensible to anyone with patience and intelligence. He commissioned a small secret chamber in his planned mortuary temple, where he placed artifacts that connected to their love, Nefer's sketches, gifts they had exchanged in stolen moments, objects touched by hands he would never touch again. He did this not from ego but from desperate need for truth to survive, for evidence that could not be destroyed by priestly censorship. He wanted someone, someday, somehow to know that he had loved and been loved, that his life contained dimensions that official history would never capture. He wanted proof that would outlast priestly prohibition, that might speak to future generations who perhaps would understand what his own time condemned as abomination. Khufu died in his 49th year, 21 years after sending Nefer away. His passing came peacefully, no dramatic deathbed scene, simply a gradual fading as if he were slowly erasing himself from reality, following the path his beloved had taken decades before. His last words, witnessed only by a single trusted servant who had kept their secret through all those lonely years, were spoken with the certainty of one who had prepared long for this moment. Tell him I kept my promise. Tell him I never forgot. Tell him that every stone I touched, every monument I built, was built in his memory. The servant, understanding perfectly despite decades of enforced silence about forbidden love, nodded and wept for the man who had been not just Pharaoh, but prisoner of his own position. Nefer learned of the Pharaoh's death weeks later, when news finally reached Sinai's remote quarries, traveling along trade routes and through whispered conversations. He was 46 then, grayed and weathered by sun and solitude, his once muscular frame now lined with the wear of unending labor and loneliness. His hands, still strong from decades of sculpting, trembled when the messenger spoke the terrible words. Upon hearing, he set down his tools with deliberate care, walked into the desert, and screamed his grief to indifferent stars. His cry echoed across the empty landscape, a sound of such raw anguish that workers nearby covered their ears and looked away. He remained in the desert 3 days and nights, neither eating nor drinking, allowing the harsh sun and cold darkness to scour him clean of tears until none remained, as if the desert itself were consuming his sorrow, burning it away. He never returned to Memphis, to the palace gardens, to the place where their love had bloomed so briefly. What would be the point? The man he loved existed only in memory now, a ghost more real than any living person, and memory needs no geography. Instead, he requested permanent assignment to Sinai, surrendering any hope of return, spending remaining years creating beauty from stone, sculptures and carvings that contained coded references to stolen love, hidden messages carved so subtly that future archaeologists would puzzle over them without ever understanding. In his final carvings, Nefer depicted 2 men, one aged and wise, one young and beautiful, reaching across impossible distances. Their muscles were rendered with anatomical precision born of deep knowledge, their bodies adult and fully developed, their expressions frozen in eternal longing. He carved doorways that opened onto nothing, thresholds that led nowhere, symbols only he and the dead Pharaoh would have understood. He died alone at 53, his body discovered by workers who found him seated before an unfinished carving, a doorway leading nowhere. Two male figures reaching across impossible distance, their strength and beauty eternally incomplete. They buried him in the quarry cemetery with minimal ceremony, noting his name and occupation on a simple stela that listed his professional accomplishments, but said nothing of his heart. No priest attended. No family came. The desert claimed him as it claimed all things eventually. History moved on, indifferent to human tragedy. New pharaohs rose and fell again in endless succession. Empires shifted like sand beneath the wind. Dynasties crumbled into dust and memory. Centuries accumulated like sand over ruins, covering all traces until time itself seemed to have buried their story. The hidden caches Khufu prepared remained undiscovered for millennia, perhaps destroyed by tomb robbers or natural decay, perhaps waiting still in darkness for hands that would finally understand. Official records mentioned neither Nefer nor the love that had complicated Khufu's reign, and those few priests who knew the truth took the secret to their own graves, guarding it as sacred burden. But erasure is never complete. Memory persists in unexpected places, in oral traditions that survive manuscript destruction despite all efforts at censorship, in archaeological anomalies that resist official interpretation, in the uncanny recognition modern hearts feel when encountering ancient struggles. The love between two men, a pharaoh and an artisan, echoes across millennia like sound traveling through endless corridor of time, speaking to every heart that has loved against prohibition. Their story was not unique. It was simply one variation of the eternal pattern, desire that defies permission, connection that transcends convention, love that refuses to apologize for existing. Throughout history, love between men has been erased, condemned, criminalized, yet it persists, underground, hidden, but undeniable. It flows beneath the surface of every civilization, present in shadows and secrets, waiting for generations brave enough to speak its name. We cannot know exactly what passed between Khufu and Nefer in those stolen hours in palace gardens. We cannot hear the words they whispered in darkness, or feel the desperate clutching of hands that knew separation approached with the inevitability of dawn. We cannot measure the weight of sacrifice or the depth of longing that haunted their remaining years, the slow ache of distance that never quite healed. But we can recognize the essential truth. They loved. Against law and custom, against theological condemnation and social consequence, against every force that sought to prevent or punish such love, they loved. And in loving, they became fully human in ways that power and position could never achieve. Their love was not shameful. It was sacred. The pyramids still stand, massive and eternal, monuments to a civilization that persists in our memory. The Nile still flows, indifferent to human drama, carrying forward the same waters that once reflected the faces of men long dead. And somewhere beneath Egyptian sand, perhaps fragments remain, a sketch, a letter, a carved doorway leading nowhere. Evidence that once, long ago, a pharaoh and an artisan, two men bound by passionate devotion, proved that love, even when destroyed and erased, cannot be completely extinguished. Their names may be lost, their graves may be forgotten, buried beneath millennia of sand and time, but the fundamental truth of their existence, that they loved and suffered and persisted, echoes across centuries, finding resonance in every heart that has ever chosen authenticity over approval, connection over convention, love over the fear of love. In the end, perhaps that is all any of us can hope for. To love fully despite impossibility, to reach across unbridgeable distances, to be remembered not for accomplishments or status, but for the courage to feel deeply in a world that demands emotional restraint. This is the legacy of men who loved men, whose passion burned too bright for their time, but will illuminate forever for those willing to look beyond the silence that history has imposed. The desert keeps its secrets. History keeps its silences. But memory, Eternal, persistent memory flows like underground river, sustaining those who know where to drink, carrying truths that official narratives refuse to speak. And in that hidden current, Khufu and Nefer live still, not as Pharaoh and artisan, not as divine one and commoner, but as two souls who recognized each other across the void and, for brief burning moments, became more real together than they had ever been alone. The story ends where all stories end, in silence, in absence, in the aching space where love once lived. But that silence itself speaks volumes, a testimony to feelings that official doctrine could not accommodate, to truths that power could not suppress, to the stubborn persistence of human heart against all forces that seek to contain it or deny its reality. Remember them. Remember all the forgotten lovers whose names history erased. Remember that every monument, every grand achievement, every official narrative contains hidden dimensions. Stories of longing and loss, of love between men that burned, too bright for its time, of sacrifices that served cosmic order while destroying individual souls and breaking hearts that would never fully heal. The sun sets over Egypt. Stars emerge, same stars that watched ancient tragedies unfold millennia ago. And somewhere in that eternal darkness, perhaps two souls finally reunite, freed from earthly constraints, loving at last without fear or consequence. The Pharaoh and his secret beloved, together in the only realm where such love could truly exist. The eternal now of memory, where all that was forbidden becomes finally, beautifully possible. Their love was not sin. It was the truest thing that ever existed in that ancient land. And it persists still, carried forward by memory, waiting for the day when the world might finally be brave enough to honor what it once condemned.